My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon of my sins and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Well, if you live in the northern hemisphere, you might have noticed that the daffodils are springing up, and they are called Narcissus in some place. There's a variety of daffodil which is called the Narcissus plant. And I'm going to look at the origin of that name because it's connected in some way with today's gospel, and an important lesson also that we can learn from the daffodil and also from the gospel passage that we have in today's Mass. Well, the Narcissus plant, or the daffodil, takes its name from a Greek myth of a boy who was born, Narcissus, born to a nymph who was warned at the birth of the boy that he should never, under any condition, see his own image. So his mother, Liriope, did everything in her power to remove all mirrors and shiny surfaces from their home. So little Narcissus grew up never seeing his own reflection. He became a fine, handsome, super handsome hunter. And at one stage he's out hunting and he came to a calm spring of the purest water. He looks down into the water and of course he sees his own image and promptly fell completely in love with himself. The image that was looking back at him from the calm water. And he stayed rooted to the spot, looking down at himself, his image, and begging the image to requite his love, to return his love, until there's various variations of the story. But in one variation, he becomes so distressed that his love is not requited that he kills himself with a knife, and the blood spreads over the ground. But the gods interceded, in a sense, for him, the late Narcissus, and a white flower whose eye was always looking downwards towards its own reflection was sprung up in the place where Narcissus had been. And so that flower is the Narcissus. And so when you see those flowers, think of the original Narcissus. And not only the original Narcissus, but also something which we call narcissism, which is this being bent over on ourselves, admiring ourselves, at least contemplating ourselves, looking at our image, bent over like Narcissus. Now, just like with the original Narcissus, it doesn't end well if we too are bent over like that in this thing called narcissism. And I tell you this little story because today's gospel is about a narcissist, and his name is Dives. Well, it's not really a name, in fact. Dives is just a Latin for rich man, because Jesus, who tells us the story, doesn't give him a proper name. Whereas the other actor in the story, of course, we know his name very well, and it's a real name, Lazarus. And so the story begins in today's gospel. Jesus said to the Pharisees, "There was a rich man who used to dress in purple and fine linen and feast magnificently every day." Now, apparently purple, this kind of cloth which is called purple after its color, was more valuable than gold or silver. So it's really super valuable. And also linen, especially fine linen, is almost a sacred kind of cloth. We still preferably use that for the altar, what we call the altar linens in Mass, the different kinds of cloths that the priests use in Mass, preferably should be made, the tradition anyway, of linen. And of course, that's what he's got. He's got purple, he's got linen, and these magnificent banquets every day of the year. At his gate there lay a poor man called Lazarus, covered with sores, who longed to fill himself with the scraps that fell from the rich man's table. Dogs even came and licked his sores. Now, the thing about divas, we don't see him do anything wrong, but what's quite striking about him is how he seems to care nothing about Lazarus, who's just at his gate, hardly even noticing Lazarus. And why is this? And I think the answer is because Jesus is you are giving us the picture of a perfect narcissist. Like the daffodil, his head is bent over, his eyes and his heart, like those of Narcissus, are focused on himself, on his lovely purple clothing. You can imagine him think, gosh, purple really is my colour. And his lovely linen. And you can see him saying, I deserve nothing less than the finest linen. And of course his tummy too, with those fine banquets. He pampering himself all day long. And we can imagine the extension of that is his maybe obsession with his image. What do people think of my latest purple outfit? How do people admire my fine linen? They realize how expensive it is, and so on and so on. So he is a narcissist. And of course, in his case, it ends very badly because Jesus tells us that he dies, he's buried, and he is in hell. He goes to hell for this. Whereas Lazarus is taken to the bosom of Abraham. That's all the just who are waiting for the redemption, for our Lord to die on the cross, and so open the gates of heaven. So that's where Lazarus goes. But Dives ends really quite badly. Now we might say, well, what's that to me? What is Dives to me? And what is this story to me? Well, a lot of people have identified our age as a narcissistic age. There's even a book called The Narcissism Epidemic, Living in the Age of Entitlement, which is all about this, saying, it's by a social scientist, saying it's kind of the flavour of the month, really, for us all. Narcissism, and it's everywhere. And we're all, to some degree, falling into it. And we could end up, even just a little, maybe quite a lot, like Dives. So there's something of Dives in you and in me. The way Pope Benedict put it was this way. He says, in the parable of Dives and Lazarus, the rich man is heedless of the poverty of Lazarus, who is starving to death at his very door. The parable of the rich man and Lazarus and the parable of the Good Samaritan are examples of the opposite of being concerned, of looking upon others with love and compassion. And then Pope Benedict goes on and asks, why do we, like Dives, so often not have that concern and compassion with our brothers and sisters? And he gives the answer. He says, often it is the possession of material riches and a sense of sufficiency. But it can also be the tendency to put our own interests and problems above all else. Jesus, when I see that, I realize I'm a bit of a daffodil. My head bent over, looking down at my reflection, at my material riches, my possessions. Also a little bit obsessed with my interests and very obsessed with my problems. And of course one of the problems about that is that, therefore, because my head is bent over, drooping like the daffodil, that I don't notice things about those around me, my family, people perhaps I'm with hours every day, my friends, my colleagues, and things that they need me to notice, like Lazarus could very well have done with Dives noticing his dreadful state at his gate. So, Lord, help me to fight against my narcissism. You give us Lent to do that. And that is part of our self-denial in all kinds of things. It humbles our heart, gives us a personal experience of a little bit of suffering. And the way, again, I think it's Benedict says, that can awaken in us a sense of compassion and empathy. We co-passion, suffer with people. Empathy, we have, literally it means feeling in them. So it makes us able to put ourselves in their shoes. There's an old proverb, the well-fed person doesn't understand the hungry one. So Lord, may through my fasting, but also my prayer and my almsgiving, may I lift up my head and see the needs of others around me. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections and inspirations you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.